After you make that reset and you become primarily a fat burner, it's okay. You think about when you're going to have to burn a match and strategic carbs and making sure that you're taking that on board when you need it. But it's just a trickle. It's not something to get so stressed out about. And you see folks similar to marathon and ultra marathon just with this gut distress, and you just start to think there's a better way. It's so much more enjoyable.
What you were saying, John, is true, because I found I actually have to set my Wahoo to tell me to take a gel when a hill's coming, because I'm so used that I don't need anything. To remember when it gets to a certain level, you do need something, right? That's for that strategic carb, but I forget because I can do the whole thing on water and electrolytes and some Vespa. And I got to remember there are times you need it. And so I've had to remind myself because I'm so used to not doing it.
Yeah, so I did a little post on Instagram with a race report, and I gave very short shrift to the nutrition piece because at this point it's so intuitive, and I frankly thought so little about it, and it was such a non-stressor before the race. And like other OFM athletes, relative to I think the conventional wisdom, I'm certain I took on substantially fewer calories during the race. I had absolutely no issues. I had nothing close to a bonk, no gut issues, really no problems at all. I ate some normal food. I ate a few gels when I knew I needed them. I had the Morton on trickle. Had a couple of gas station empanadas. Had a bocadillo in the middle of nowhere. When I got hungry and I needed something salty and some good food, stayed on top of the salt, and I did stay on top. The one thing I did regularly stay on top of was the Vespa Ultra concentrate. Probably one every 3 to 4 hours. And that was more or less the long and short of it, staying hydrated. And it just worked. And I'm in my day-to-day life and the training block coming up this, I was not particularly restrictive, nowhere near keto. Yeah, I suppose just mention as well. I did use ketone esters during the race. I also use them in training, both pre and for recovery. The advice you gentlemen gave me on the microdosing and really sipping on the ketone ester flask as opposed to taking a big bolus, all those things just worked incredibly well. But all that to say that I don't live keto. I do a lot of fasted training. I train fasted 5 days a week, and aside from that, I tend to be very intuitive around having balanced meals and timing the carbohydrates around workouts, and ultimately keeping an eye on not spiking my glucose outside of exercise unnecessarily, because I'm just really conscious of that. Having been a bit of a geek and worn a continuous glucose monitor for a while, and understanding how different foods affect me, and just having an eye for the long term, but not nearly keto. I wouldn't necessarily even describe myself as low carb, but that is all following early on with you, Peter. I'd say from after the sort of awakening I had at Angeles Crest, where we first started working, or after which we started working together, because that was a hard 28 hours.
Yeah, and when you were talking about your hydration not being a problem at Badlands, I was thinking, yeah, that you had that was your first real introduction to what can go very wrong with hydration when you that between Vincent Gap and what was the next Islip Saddle and Vincent Gap, yeah.
Yeah, I was in hell. I remember the ravine I was laying in, but after that, I really was. I think I took it too far, and I was very strictly keto for a long time. By the time and I think even through, I don't know exactly where I was at 2013 during the faster study, but I was really, really strictly, I'd say almost always under 50 grams of carbs a day. And I was counting, and just probably a bit too focused on it, to the point where probably affected family life in a negative way, and it became kind of difficult socially. But having that base of being keto for a while and doing a really hard reset has, I think, enabled me to have quite a bit more flexibility now. And I think And there's very few other, I mean, relatively speaking, there are just very few athletes I think have gone through a similar experience. So it's my own self-experiment, my N of one, but my hypothesis is that having had that really disciplined 5 to 7 year block enables me to be a bit more flexible now. And even to the point where when it comes to the long stuff, it just, I just don't, I have supreme confidence in my ability to just go out and race primarily fat based. And, even if, yeah, and I think I could probably, I mean, nobody would want to do this on purpose, but I think I could probably manage low zone 1, 2 for a really, really long time with water and salt. And Tony, you probably have similar experience, and it's, you can go a really long time without even thinking about eating.
Yeah, you add the Vespa in and it gets stupid. Vespa water
Yeah.
and salt, and it's just like it's zone 1, zone 2, and it's stupid. But if you want to have the performance, you got to bring the carbs in, and to a point. I remember encouraging you to throw in more carbs when you were in that strict keto phase.
Yeah.
It's really important because if you go strict keto for too long, you downregulate your pyruvate dehydrogenase enzyme, which is critical for being able to use carbs when you add them in. If somebody's in strict keto and you add the carbs back in, they still won't perform because they don't have the enzyme necessary for splitting off the glucose into pyruvate and lactate to feed the Krebs cycle. It's important to bring the carbs in, not just for that and maintain that energy pathway, because I say glucose is your fight or flight and it's your bridge fuel. So whenever you have a change up in energy demand, glucose is going to be the primary energy substrate that fuels the muscle energy for that, or that extremely high level stuff where oxygen becomes a factor. So
I can see that in my own experience, just thinking back to several marathons in the back end of an Ironman, where I felt I am not anywhere close to bonking here, but I cannot turn in. I cannot get into that anaerobic gear. I just cannot get into it. I cannot get my heart rate elevated. I am locked into this pace, and I look back, and it seems to just be, I'm running on diesel here. I'm perfectly fine, but I just did not have the carbohydrate intake to go glycolytic, and it just seems so simple in retrospect. But yeah, you do need the carbs for the high end.
Well, yeah, it's you're running on diesel with no turbocharger, no aftercooler, zero, and you can drone all day long, and so you need them for that pathway. But you also need, what we find is to build metabolic efficiency, metabolic flexibility. It's all built on building metabolic capacity, and that's getting up huge mitochondria, filling your mitochondrial matchboxes full of mitochondria, so that when you go to the well, you have those matches to burn, and you're not continually pulling out more matches than you're putting back in. You get keto to build mitochondria, but then you need the adaptation that high intensity resistance tempo type training does, but you need the carbohydrates to push that. So it's never one thing. It's a conglomeration of factors, and the carbs allow you to do that. Ironically, the carbs create the adaptive stress to build metabolic capacity, which also builds your fat burning capacity. And if you get your cardiovascular system in really good shape, which is what OFM does, right? Because you reduce all that systemic inflammation, your oxygen blood carrying capacity is huge. So when you have to make that switch up, oxygen becomes a limiting factor for fat burn, because it's twice the oxygen per ATP versus glycolysis. Well, all of a sudden you convert to glycolysis, and because you've developed this huge cardiovasculature to fuel with fat, you have all this oxygen to really have that performance. And you could probably relate to that now with where you've been on performance.
Yeah, definitely.